So I am Julie Klima, and I have the pleasure of serving as the managing director here at the Midwest Center for Nonprofit Leadership in the Block School of Management at UMKC. Our mission as a center is to catalyze nonprofit and community organization success through education, engagement, research, and service. Today's nonprofit navigation session is part of our semi-regular series of educational programs that allow the community to share ideas, tools, and conversations designed to help nonprofits be successful. Our topic today is nonprofit compensation and the concept of total rewards, going beyond salary to encompass the full spectrum of benefits, recognition, and work-life harmony. Before I get to this fantastic panel of experts that are here to share their wisdom with all of you, I do want to take this opportunity to let you know that we are going to be sending out our salary and benefits survey after the 4th of July holiday. I know that a lot of you look for that hyper-local research that we produce annually and rely on that to help your organizations. And of course, that research is only as good as the people that participate and the organizations that participate. So please, please, please look for it in your inbox after the 4th of July holiday. Respond at your earliest convenience so that we can continue to provide this local data that is so important to all of us. And I want to go ahead and say thank you to this fantastic panel of experts that has joined us today. With me are Nancy Day, Professor Emerita of Human Resources and Organizational Behavior from UMKC. She's going to be moderating this conversation, along with fantastic panelists that are experts in their field. Cheyenne Clonch from Human Resources at MOCSA, Gino Taylor, Vice President of People, Culture, and Equity at the Family Conservancy, and John Binder, who's the Compensation Practice Leader at OMNI Human Resource Solutions and works with a lot of nonprofits. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Nancy.
Okay, well, I appreciate everyone being here. I want to give a little background about myself and then ask our panelists to say more about themselves and the organization. But I am, as Julie said, I'm a professor emerita, which means I'm retired. And I retired several years ago, and one of my major fields of research and teaching that I really loved was total rewards. And I've served on the board of World at Work, and just resigned from the advisory board for the Journal of Total Rewards, which probably many of you are familiar with. So I've been distanced from rewards for a few years, and so I'm looking for this great trio of folks to give us exactly what the issues are and all of the answers, of course. And so, should we start? Like, if we do alphabetical order, we might do Cheyenne. Cheyenne, do you want to talk about MOCSA and yourself?
Hello, yes, welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheyenne Clonch. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the VP of HR at MOCSA. And at MOCSA, we serve survivors of sexual assault and abuse through our counseling and advocacy programs, as well as work to prevent sexual violence in our community through education and our public policy prevention programming. So I have been with MOCSA since 2011. I started in direct advocacy work and eventually moved into human resources after having the opportunity to observe how important our policies and things like total rewards were and ultimately serving our mission. So I'm really excited to be here with the panel today. Thank you all so much.
Hey, Gino.
Hi, I'm Gino Taylor. My pronouns are he and him. I've been with the Family Conservancy for about 2 years now. I spent most of my career in the healthcare industry. I started my career as an intelligence officer in the military, so it's kind of like my career is all over the place. But I landed at the Family Conservancy 2 years, and the Family Conservancy focuses on early education and mental health.
Okay, John.
Awesome. Good morning. Excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to participate on the panel this morning. I'm John Binder. I'm with the OMNI Human Resource Solutions. I'm the compensation practice leader. OMNI Human Resource Solutions is a small human resources consulting firm. We help our small and medium-sized businesses and nonprofit organizations with all things people. We help them make sure that they're able to attract, retain, and motivate high-performing individuals in their organizations. And we're proud to say that almost half of our clientele are local nonprofit organizations here in the greater Kansas City area and more broadly in the Midwest. And so this is a real passion for us, and I'm pleased to be able to chat with you today. I'm the compensation practice leader, so that means that's translated means I'm in the HR and human resources and compensation total rewards field for many years. So
All right, thank you. Well, how I have always approached total rewards is that the strategies that you have in total rewards need to be the fundamental mechanism that really supports all of the HR functions. So attraction, retention, motivation, compensation, and all of the reward systems have a lot to do with that. So that's sort of the focus I'd like for us to take. We'll stay at a strategic level. And so the overall question I have is, what total reward strategies are working in your organizations that help you achieve your organization's mission? What does your organization do that you'd recommend to other nonprofits? And maybe that you consider best practices. So bragging is okay. So with the first question I wanted to ask, and I'd like to direct this at Cheyenne and Gino. Can you highlight strategies that you believe are key to your organization's success? And if you could talk a little bit about those, that would be wonderful. So, Cheyenne, do you want to
I'll
start?
go ahead and get started. Yes. So I think that our total reward strategy is really critical to our mission. It's directly related. So at MOCSA, we're serving survivors of sexual violence. We're working to prevent sexual violence, which means our employees are really giving so much of themselves to achieve our mission. And so their overall well-being is really critical. So when we're thinking about our total rewards, we are considering compensation, benefits, those typical strategies that you would look at, but we're really going beyond to include those factors of well-being and make sure people can have success at home and at work. So that's including things like mental health resources and funding to access mental health, really flexible work environments so people can take care of their families, have that dedicated time away from work, having extensive PTO, and a lot of opportunities to assist our team members with professional development. So if that's through certifications, mentorship programs, leadership programs, and all of those different strategies really help us attract our great team members. But I think one of the biggest pieces about retention is having a continuous feedback model. So we're making sure that the total reward strategies that we're using are really including the benefits that our team members want. So I think with that, I'll pass it to Gino.
I think I would share a lot of the same. I will add that it is no one right total rewards package, and sometimes it's going to be trial and error. So you're going to have to listen to your staff and do what they're asking for in the moment. And that often changes. We all know as leaders, like what they want often change. And sometimes it's not clear. So, but you have to just keep being flexible. I think I will put ours in kind of like three buckets, work-life balance, professional development, and culture. And for as it relates to work-life balance, we offer like a flexible work schedule. We offer up to 12 weeks of paid leave, medical leave. We only have a 7.5 working day, and we really try to stick to that and force people out the door at 7.5. And then we offer for their first year of employment, they get 264 hours of PTO. Often our staff complain that they don't have enough time to take their PTO, which I guess that's a good problem to have. But we're hopeful that that will help with that work-life balance and prevent burnout and compassion fatigue and all those things that come along with working in our workspaces. And for professional development, we provide mental health services, so clinical supervision is important. It's probably one of the most costly things for people to get licensed, so we offer that to them free. And then also mentorship, both formal and informal mentorship, people need and want. So we are trying to develop like a more formal mentorship program that includes people outside of our organization, so people can get a diverse uh, view of how their job would be. And I think the last one, and probably the one that every company is kind of like in the front, is the cultural fit. Um, People really want to work for an organization that has diverse leadership. They want to be able to see themselves in the leadership because then they know more likely that their values will align with the organization if they have a diverse leadership. And the number one question that I think people are asking is, will they feel like they belong in the organization? And especially for the younger generation, if that is not present, they are more likely to leave the organization. So we have to make sure that we create a culture of belonging.
Okay, okay, John, what do you see with your clients that works really well?
Well, I just want to commend both Cheyenne and Gino on what they said about their organizations. That's outstanding. Really, you should be very proud about your environments there. What I see with our clients, many of our nonprofit clients, and maybe this speaks to some of you all on the call this morning. Many of our nonprofit clients face a real challenge competing in the labor market today for talent because they tend to have a fixed income, so to speak. They don't have access to the more, I don't want to say enormity, but the more flexible array of financial resources that might allow them to offer, a lot more aggressive pay, more diverse or aggressive health insurance, and so forth. So many of them feel kind of, I don't want to say trapped, but they're contained or constrained. And it's difficult. They find it difficult for depending on the organization and the work that they do, they find it difficult to compete for talent with all of the other major players, for-profit players in the community. So for them, their total reward strategy is integral to being able to attract the kind of people and keep them within their organization. So obviously, having a strategy around, how are we going to approach pay, given that we have some restriction on how much money we can invest in pay? What kind of benefits can we offer that allow us to stand out and be attractive to the folks that we want to attract in our organization, that are going to be meaningful and cost effective for them? So those are if you think about where your spend is, that's probably the lion's share of where your financial resources on the total reward side goes. So one of the things that I wanted to pick up about Cheyenne and Gino's comments. So, how else do you differentiate yourselves when you may have financial restrictions? Well, it's those things that are maybe non-financial, the cultural fit, the cultural opportunities, career development, flexible work environment. Both of Gino and Cheyenne both spoke to those very clearly, and those are important differentiators that allow an organization to be able to attract and retain the kind of people they need to be successful. Career development, like I said, being able to focus in on those types of things that don't necessarily have a hard cost to them, I think are integral for clients. And so we encourage our clients to think in those terms strategically about total rewards, especially if they have, some restriction in terms of the amount of resources they can invest in that space.
Okay. So all very interesting, and I agree with John that it sounds like Gino and Cheyenne are offering some great options for employees. So I have a couple of questions related to that. So based on John seems to be absolutely on point in terms of, if you can't offer a lot of money, you have to offer something. And so one question is, do you have a strategy of where your pay is relative to the market? I mean, Julie talked about that really great salary survey that the Midwest Center does. do you have a strategy for we pay this much, this percentage of the market, but we can supplement it by offering these things that that may not be available in other organizations? Gino, why don't you start with that one?
I don't know if we do that in a way that we advertise that to staff directly, but we are constantly comparing ourselves to the market and seeing how close we are to the market. And to be honest, we are never really close. In fact, when people are leaving the organization in their exit interviews, often the reason they are leaving is because they will like more pay, especially in the mental health field. So I don't know if we have a particular strategy related to that, other than we know it will add a lot of money to our budget, and we work with our development department on where are these unrestricted funds coming from, so we can actually increase their salaries. So that's constantly a conversation at our leadership level. But I don't know if we fully advertise that because I don't know if we know the answer, and we don't really know the answer, and so we try only to share the things that we know an answer to. So
Cheyenne.
Yeah. So we do use the market to determine our salaries. So for us, our salary ranges are 90 to 115% of the market average. And so we are using the survey that we just talked about annually to determine what the market is looking like. And we are comparing ourselves with other organizations that are our budget size and in our region, and also within our industry. So maybe not specifically always just nonprofit across the board, but we might dig in a little bit deeper into behavioral health or education, depending on the positions that we're looking at. But even with that being said, sometimes we're falling below people's expectations, or there are other companies who can be more agile, offer different bonuses or increases. So we do have to be creative a little bit and communicate well about what our entire strategy is. And I think one of the things that helps us with that retention is having dedicated opportunities that we communicate about, opportunities to increase pay. So when someone completes evidence-based treatment certifications, when they complete education, after a certain number of years in different positions, staff are eligible for increases. And so we find that we're able to retain staff because they're able to work towards those milestones, and they can trust that when they reach those milestones, they will be able to increase their income at those times. So, but the surveys really do help us in making sure that we're able to be competitive in the market.
So just a quick question, is the market that you define just nonprofits, or is it broader based on budgetary size and things like that? Or what is your market? What's your comparison group?
Generally, it will be nonprofits of our size, but specifically for certain roles, we may expand beyond to look at for-profit or other industries that we might be competing with for talent in those positions.
Okay, Gino?
And I would say that we definitely look across the industry. We are losing most of our people to for-profit or entrepreneurship. So we are definitely looking at how much they can make as an independent contractor, as a therapist, and we lose quite a few people to the school district. So we definitely look at those particular two because that's who we're losing people to, and we try to rise to the occasion, but sometimes we still have difficult getting there because of budget restraints.
John, what do you see your clients doing in terms of the market?
Yeah, our clients focus mostly on the comparators that are closest to them. So nonprofit organizations, maybe if they're in the mental health space, they focus on, those or developmental disabilities and so forth. And, so the Nonprofit Connect survey certainly is a helpful resource for that. But for many, depending on the talent that they're looking, the roles they're looking at, they might have to supplement, that with additional data to get a real good feel for it. I mean, it's important, I would say, from my perspective, it's really important for any organization to really understand what the market is doing. You can have a total reward strategy and so forth, but in order for you to really make that come to life, you really need to understand what the market forces are doing and what the competition is paying so that you can have an understanding, so you have a benchmark to manage to and manage around. And one of the things that I liked about what Cheyenne and Gino kind of both alluded to is you also have to, so you can understand what the market pay rates are, but then you need to have some type of pay program or model that allows you to manage pay. And Cheyenne kind of alluded to it, how are you going to manage pay so that people can understand how their pay is influenced and what goes into the decisions around their pay. And to the extent you can be transparent about that, it's really important. The more you keep behind the curtain, so to speak, it leaves it up to your employees to have to guess or come to their own conclusions about how pay works in your organization. So I would really encourage all, to the extent that you could share as much as you feel comfortable being able to share about how pay works within your organization, and be open to having those individual conversations with employees about their pay and what affects their pay. It's important for them to understand, and it also helps you build trust in your relationship with your employees, and allows you to, help them understand, and you can educate them about how pay works and what the market looks like. And as long as you understand, you may have to agree to disagree on some areas. Like no one gets paid as much as they want to, right? We all suffer from that individually, right? But as long as people can understand how pay works in your organization and how I fit into that model and so forth, I think you really kind of take yourselves, you advance yourselves much further in terms of strengthening the relationship with your people.
Okay. And that communication piece is dicey, right? Because if you say, you can only ring the bell once, right? You can't take the bell back. So I did want to ask a question before, because I want to drill down a little bit more about the communication, because I find that very interesting. But also about for nonprofit organizations, you've both met, Cheyenne and Gino, you both mentioned your missions, which is, both are so important missions to our society. And so how do you use the mission of the organization as an attraction and retention tool? How is that part of your reward strategy?
So, I think for us, our mission is what kind of draws people to our organization. So we have to make sure that we focus our mission. We actually are in our strategic planning phase right now, making sure that we are staying focused on what is our thing in the community. So, because that's what draws people in. So we have to kind of stay mission focused, and that alone kind of draws people in.
Okay. And is there a way that you emphasize that mission in your recruitment materials and things like that?
Definitely. We talk about kind of what our values are as an organization, and we use specific words that people are looking for. Like one of the phrases we use is anti-white supremacy. Like we literally say these terms in the advertisement so people understand where our values are.
Okay. All right. Cheyenne.
Yeah, so I would echo what Gino said. A lot of people come to work at MOCSA because of our mission. They're interested in what we do. They have a personal commitment to our cause. And so we do talk about that in our recruitment materials. We also share our values. But one thing that I would add is that we also know that many people who come to work in our field are survivors themselves, or they have survivors in their families. So when we're thinking about our total rewards, we're also thinking about the survivors on our staff, survivors of any kind of trauma, and making sure that we're seeing them. We are giving them tools. We're giving them support in the ways that they need to address their own personal experiences. And so I think that's also part of why our compensation and our rewards are really related to our mission, because we're working to improve our whole community, and that includes our very own community of people who work with us.
Okay, so it sounds like both of you really align your mission with how you attract, retain people and support them once they're there. And John, do you see your nonprofit clients focus? I mean, it's always seemed to me to be would be a reward to work for an organization that you thought was doing good. Do you see your clients doing that?
Absolutely. I would say, quite frankly, in my opinion, from my perspective, I'd say that's one clear advantage that nonprofit organizations have over any other organizations, in the for-profit space, is they're very strong mission oriented organizations, and they attract people who are clearly aligned with those missions. I share with my clients, oftentimes, and when I'm doing work with them, I like to share with them other experiences about what other organizations are going through, because we all, as a business, we all think that what we're experiencing is unique to us. And so I try to share with my clients, others are sharing or facing these same challenges. And one of the challenges that happens in the for-profit space is building an esprit de corps or an alignment with a mission in their organization. And it's really hard to do. I'd say almost all of my nonprofit clients, it's built into what they do and who they are. And it's a key reason they attract the talent that they do to their organizations. I remind them all the time is that for-profit organizations would give much, life and limb to be able to have that type of mission orientation and alignment for their people. So it's a huge benefit, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It would be interesting to know, if you could somehow survey people, how much below the market would you accept for this mission? What's a good fit mission wise? And I'd be willing to go 10% under what I get paid someplace else to work for MOCSA or work for the Family Conservancy. So interesting. So I also wanted to go back to the issue of communication. And how much one of the things I used to talk to my students about is having a rewards communication strategy. How much do you give? So is that something, or how do you explain what it is that you are rewarding people with? So, Gino, do you want to start with that one?
Two things. So sometimes we're communicating without knowing that we're communicating. So we try to make sure that we're always
Good or
transparent.
bad?
And so what I mean by that is a not-for-profit, we all complete a 990, right? So people are like the salaries of our executives are out there. So our staff will find that information and compare their salaries to the executives. So we have to make sure that we as the executive team are staying within the right ratio of paying people. We do not want to be 10 times our highest paid person doesn't want to be 10 times higher than our lowest paid person. So sometimes the communication is out of our control. So we just need to be mindful of what we are paying people, be transparent. Uh, the second thing I would say is that this may be an area that we can grow in as an organization. We have tried a few approaches. And one of the pieces of feedback we got from staff is that we were trying to justify why we paid them so little. So I don't know the right balance yet of giving them the information and not making them feel like we are just trying to explain ourselves away. So we have a lot of growth in this. So if Cheyenne can give me some tips, I'm just definitely going to steal them and implement them because it hasn't worked out perfectly for us, but we try to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah. All right, Cheyenne.
Sure. So I can't say that it's worked out perfectly, but we do have a strategy. And so we try to be as transparent as possible about how pay is determined, how market ranges or salary ranges are determined in the market, and how pay works. So all of we publish our salary ranges on all of our job descriptions. I find that really helps both the hiring manager and the incoming employee understand that there's a system in place. So just building that trust right from the beginning. And then all of our new employees receive information about how pay is determined. I have like a little infographic that I give to everybody at the beginning, and we talk through that during orientation. And then annually, in January after the budget is approved, I do an all-staff presentation on compensation. I talk about, again, how we determine salaries, how our total rewards package works, and what happened in the market in the previous year. So how we came to our decision about pay for that year, cost of living adjustments, and how we came to that. And then we actually publish all of our salary ranges for every position internally for our team. So you can see what all of the salary ranges are for the year and where we'll be hiring people in. And then I find that that really does help open up the conversation for any individuals who think they may not be placed accurately or who want to learn more about how their pay was determined. And so then we'll have those individual conversations as well. And ultimately, I think that this really speaks to what Gino was talking about earlier, which is that culture that you want to have, building a culture of trust, making sure that people who are on your team understand how things work and feel like pay decisions are made fairly, so that they can see what the system is and understand that. And so we know that our team understands how their pay was determined, and they may or may not agree with what the salary range is, where they're placed. They may desire more, but they know what the system is, and we're all on the same page.
Okay. John, what do you see your clients doing in that regard?
Well, I mean, if I can get them to the point where Cheyenne just outlined, that would be outstanding. I mean, I would say that's kind of the gold standard for if you can cultivate that kind of communication and that kind of trust and that kind of transparency. That's outstanding, and I think there's a lot to. I'm sure, as Cheyenne described, there's a lot of benefit to that, a lot of trust being built there, and so forth. Not everybody's environment is such that they can do that. You just can't flip a switch. What I'd suggest is you just can't flip a switch to get to where Cheyenne just described. It's a journey, and I think you have to build. So don't feel bad if you're out there listening to this and say, "Oh my gosh, I need to start doing this right away." It's a journey, and you have to build to get to that point, right? In order to be able to share and be transparent, you have to have a strategy. You have to be comfortable that, in your strategy, and all your decision makers and leaders are comfortable and understand how it works and why we are where, why we have it as a strategy and as a philosophy. You have to kind of build, and then you have to educate your employees and bring them along. So much of your communication is education as much as anything else to help them understand. So, but so many of our clients come to us, and they're just, they're searching to find the path forward to help them be more successful in this space. So, and it's important because, we talk about pay transparency. It's important because today, all of us could go right now and Google search and pull up all kinds of pay information, right? There's all kinds of information available to us today. So if we think our employees aren't doing this on a daily basis or on a recurring basis, kind of we're kidding ourselves. So, our employees are bringing us to the transparency table because they can go and have access to information. And so information is information, but it may not be the right context for comparison to my organization and so forth. That's where I think the employer has an opportunity to educate and help people understand how this works in our organization and who we compare ourselves to. And the fact that we don't have an endless supply of resources. And so we have to make all of this has to work within our financial model. And one of the last thing I'll say about total reward strategy in this space is I think of it as a piece of pie, so to speak. And your piece of pie is kind of the totality of the resources your organization's able to invest in total rewards. And so you split that pie between base pay, bonuses if you offer them, insurance benefits, pay time off, retirement savings, all those things. So if you're going to invest in more in one space it usually means because I have to spend less in another space. Oftentimes it's a trade-off decision. And so I think being open and honest about that in a way, I think is important for employees to understand. And again, ultimately, like Cheyenne described it, builds trust.
Yeah. And I
Can
think the
also
bottom line, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to add one more point. I know sometimes this is difficult to actually have this conversation with staff, but we have to get comfortable because it will become the law of the land. I believe it's 8 states that have passed transparency law. So it's kind of written into statute and law. So maybe look at some of those other states that have actually passed that law and kind of use them as a reference point to build your own template to communicate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think what you're all suggesting is that if you're going to communicate something, it better be really a good system that you've thought through. That if you don't have a sound, fairly designed, rational system and you communicate that, that's a mistake. So I think you probably all agree with that. Okay, so I'm sorry.
This is Julie. I just wanted to jump in with a question that somebody sent to me directly. So if an organization finds themselves in a place where they haven't been communicating and they may have a somewhat lopsided or, non-strategic compensation strategy, how do they get to there? Any advice on just some of the things that they should be doing to get there, particularly when they have to build buy-in with their board, probably, even if the executive recognizes it.
Do you want to take that, Cheyenne?
Well, the first thing that came to mind really is just to be honest about it. So if that's the situation that you have, just lay it on the table. This is where we are. And then work collaboratively with your board, with your team members to determine where you need to go next. So like John mentioned earlier, it takes time to build. We did not get to where we are with compensation overnight. It took us some time. And we did have some gaps that we needed to address. So with many of you, I'm sure, we're on multi-year grant cycles. So we can't necessarily make a change today. We have to plan that change over time. When the market changes, we have to adjust throughout the year, perhaps. And so I think it's just about being honest, being transparent with your team, and coming up with that plan, whether the plan is a 6-month plan or a 3-year plan, and just working it.
Okay. Gino?
I think I would add that you need to, as an organization, figure out how you got there. Like, was there some bias built into this pay structure? Or was this a man with fewer years of experience than the woman? Was this a race? Is it a able-body type thing? Like, what got you there? And actually really answer that question so you can prevent it from happening in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can get really out of whack if you don't monitor systems. John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's Julie, your question. That's usually the entry point for many of our clients working with us is they come to us and they're like, wow, we've got employees are pelting us with questions here and there about pay, and they have their own pay information, where have we been? And you just have to start. You have to start and start putting it together. That's what we do. We help organizations, get that started, get that, you understand what the market is. You have to start establishing what your philosophy is going to be and what your plan is and your strategy is. All of that leads to, like what Gino was just talking about, that allows you to look back and say, how did we get to where we are? And identify the gaps. It helps you identify gaps that need to be addressed over time. And from there, to Cheyenne's point, you just start sharing what you're sharing. And that's, and maybe the first thing to share is we don't have a plan. Shame on us. We don't have a plan. But we're going to get one. We're putting one together, and this is the path that we're on, and we're going to share. We're going to share with you, and we're going to be open with you about it. It's an exposing feeling. You put yourself out there as an organization. I get it. That's an uncomfortable place to be. But I think in today's day and age, I think honesty and openness, I think is far more effective an approach and a strategy than keeping information from folks or not being willing to talk about something. If I'm not willing to talk about it, then I'm not fostering a high degree of trust with my employees, and that's a slippery slope. So,
Yeah.
Nancy, if I may, I have one more follow-on question that relates to something that Cheyenne said. Somebody asked about, you mentioned that you're on multi-year grant cycles or multi-year funding cycles. What is your relationship, or what is the relationship between, your funding structure and your compensation structure? And how do you manage that when, we all know about the nonprofit overhead myth and that challenge? How do you all wrestle with that? And
Well,
Cheyenne, yeah.
I would say one is planning, having good planning, knowing when we have the opportunity to make adjustments to our grants. Also, we love our unrestricted funding, leveraging that whenever we can. But I also think that there are many things that you can do without funding or creatively with your funding outside of just compensation alone. So do your funders allow you to do certain trainings, get professional certifications? We kind of talked about that a little bit, but the career development side could be a creative way to address that. But also some of those other things related to that culture and flexibility. So what is your time off? Can you offer a reduced work week, or can you partner with some of your outside agencies to help you with other strategies around rewards? So I think it's just leveraging all of your different resources in whatever way you can. So I guess that's not a very succinct answer, but anyway, Gino or John.
I think what I could add is that at my organization, both myself and our financial person are new to the organization, are the newest people to the organization. And the thing that we both have in common is that we are change agents. And we like to do risky things. So what we would probably both of us would say is push the boundary and funders will catch up. But that's important for us to tell our story. So we have to work with our development department as well to tell our stories and why we need this money. So it's really kind of our three departments collaborating together to try to find a strategy year to year to actually do that, to make that happen.
John, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know that I have much more to add to what they both shared. Those are real life examples there, and I think leveraging your board and board relationships, I think is really important. I mean, I think if you have a strategy and you have a philosophy that you're committed to, that helps you identify gaps. And when you're able to clarify gaps, then you have the ability to, whether it be to go to seek funding or grants, to maybe or donation or whatever the route may be to raise, if that's an opportunity or that's a necessity. I think the best way to do that is to be very clear about what your gaps are and what that means to the organization's future and ability to accomplish its mission. To Gino's point, I think if you can do that and get out there in front of it and push the envelope a little bit, it's amazing what that might bring for you. I know some of our clients, they get reimbursement from the state or from other agencies and so forth, and so sometimes their funds are limited based on what those reimbursement levels are going to be, but maybe this is the way to be able to influence that for positive change in the future. Again, if you can clarify the need with data and its effect on your mission, I think you're in the best position to be able to make positive change there.
Okay. So another question that I have for you all is, and I'd like maybe John to start with this, with a broad picture of what you see, and that is what are the biggest challenges you see for nonprofit total rewards?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's, to some degree, it's partly the restriction on the resources and the fund and their availability of resources to dedicate to total rewards. I think the other challenge is just thinking more broadly about total rewards, and that in thinking more and being more creative on the side, or calling out the values that are non-hard cash related things like career development, flexible work environment, commitment to the whole self, and to mental health, and those types of things. I think that's a real opportunity for our nonprofit clients, is to really think more broadly in that regard, be more planful and strategic in that regard, and then have a communication plan to make sure employees understand what's available to them, why it's available to them, how to make best use of it. I think those are real opportunities, because I think those are things that can differentiate your work environments from the rest of the field. The rest of the field being not, for-profit, including for-profit enterprises as well. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is to be able to see the entirety of the breadth and make sure you're maximizing the value of all those elements, including those things that are non-hard cash related types of opportunities.
Yeah, and that takes it takes a step back to really realize you need to think strategically in a broad sense. Okay. Cheyenne, what's your biggest challenge?
Well, I think we really already talked about my biggest challenge, which is being agile, being able to respond quickly to the changes in the market. So, over the last several years, we've seen so many changes to our work and home lives. We've seen a drastic increase to the cost of living. And so being able to address that is challenging. But I think our best strategy has been collaborating with our team members and really listening to what it is that they need to improve their work-life balance. What are the rewards that they're looking for? And it's not always cash. Sometimes they need to work from home. Sometimes they need adjusted schedules. Sometimes they need access. We learned our team members needed more access to mental health services. And so that has helped us quite a bit, is having that communication strategy that goes both ways. So we understand what they need.
Okay. Gino, what's your biggest challenge?
I agree with both of those. I think what I would add is that we have a multi-generational workforce. So what they need and want are different. So building a package that will every group will actually feel like they are being heard and give them what they need. And that's tricky. But so trying to make sure that we're meeting everyone's needs, which is not the same across the board.
Okay. So you all mentioned meeting employees' needs. How do you find out what they need? We've talked about the downward communication of how we're going to communicate our strategy, but how do you get that upward communication, finding out what employees need? Do you do surveys? Do you do walk and talks? How do you do that? How do you find out that information?
I think,
Go ahead. Excuse me.
I jumped right in there. I'm sorry.
Good. Do it.
I think one of the things we do not struggle with is our staff communicating to us that they will tell us what they want and need. So it's just, and I think that's the benefit with working at a not-for-profit and having a relatively small type of staff that we kind of all know each other. We just have those water cooler talks. So they're literally telling us what they want. But of course, we do the traditional surveys as well, and we also do focus groups. And so, yeah, we do multiple approaches to get the information, but the best one is people just come and tell us, and they are not shy about it.
So you create a very open environment so that you feel free. There's not going to be any retribution. Okay, Cheyenne?
Yeah, the same. Our team members are very comfortable telling us what they need, what they want. We do have surveys. So we have our annual survey. We do exit surveys. We have some ongoing pulse surveys that we do with the team. So lots of opportunities for that anonymous feedback as well. And then we have monthly open conversations with our CEO. So people can join that call or join that meeting and ask her whatever they want to talk about. Sometimes they're topical as well. So if we have a question that we're trying to learn more about from our team, we might invite them around that conversation. So similar to a focus group. But it's that continuous, it's the multi-pronged approach to feedback for sure.
Okay. All right. John, anything to add? Other ideas?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the most successful, from my experience with our clients, that's those that are able to cultivate that kind of environment, that feedback loop. It's surveys, it's the interactive conversations and so forth. The nice thing about surveys are, not that I'm going to overly advocate for them, but they do give you some level of, sometimes, water cooler talk and so forth, that while it's very helpful and everything, sometimes it's hard to quantify. Surveys allow you to have some level of quantifying and maybe even being able to develop or build in some level of trade-off analysis. Would you be willing to have, would you be willing to have more of this? If you wanted more of this, what would you be willing to have less of, and so to speak? That's kind of a sophisticated surveying technique and so forth. But all those kind of, cultivating that kind of feedback is so important to making sure you're offering something that's meaningful. If you're going to invest, you want to make sure you're going to have the greatest amount of potential impact. And so it's important to understand what's important to your employee population.
Yeah, and being an ex-fellow consultant and a quant nerd, I also think that can sometimes when everybody's talking at the water cooler, there's some social pressure to nod, and that way you can find out what some of those soft voices may think that you don't.
And I just wanted to jump in with a follow-up. There is also, and maybe this is on the data side, but maybe it's not. But how are you all having conversations, not just with your staff, but also with your board? Or are you having conversations with your board about total rewards and the importance of investing in that? And do the surveys help you have those conversations?
Gino, you want to start with that one?
It's a good question. I don't know if we have had an intentional conversation with our board about total rewards. I think our focus with our board has been around recruitment and maintaining the staffing levels. That's been kind of our focus. And like, how do we attract more people? Not necessarily how do we keep them. So yes, we have had the conversation. I don't think that was the key topic of the conversation.
Okay, right. Cheyenne?
Human resources strategies are part of our strategic plan. And so in that sense, we have worked with our board because they are working towards our strategic plan as well. And then they also do have access to all of the reports that I publish around our surveys and around our employee feedback data. So we do communicate with them about it.
Okay. So I have a question that wasn't on the list I sent you, but I'm impressed with all of your knowledge and the depth that you have your programs at your organizations, and John, that you work with your clients. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into HR, how you learned all these great skills and knowledge, and kind of what your background is around your specific role? So, Gino, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So I kind of started my career in rehabilitation psychology, and that's basically the study of helping people who are disabled re-enter the workforce. So my very first job out of undergrad was helping human resources departments understand how their organization needs to change to help people with mental disabilities and physical disabilities. So that's how I started my career. So the lens that I see the world in is, how can we make this better for the person that may have the most challenges just walking in the door? And so from that, I started learning about more laws, started reading doing more research myself. My doctoral research was around individuals with autism and how do we get them back into the workforce. So it's through my research and my very first job, making sure that people who are otherly abled are able to succeed in our community as well.
Okay, and so you picked up your HR knowledge and skills through osmosis and being in those roles. Okay, Cheyenne?
Well, I started out in the anti-violence movement as an advocate. So I was working with survivors of domestic violence and eventually became a shelter director. And when I was a shelter director, I really started to fall in love with the human resources side of our work. And I think it stemmed from my interest in social justice and anti-violence because there's so much about equity that is in human resources. So making sure that our policies are fair, that people understand them, that we're taking care of our employees. And so that led me to get my master's from Baker University. So any other Baker alum, hey. And then I came into MOCSA and started working on human resources policies here. And so and then I eventually got my SHRM certifications and took the courses associated with that as well, which really helped me get to where I am.
Okay, all right. And John, what's your background that led you to this particular job?
I early in my career, I was an accounting finance person, and I had an opportunity to start a sales compensation practice for the company that I worked for. Because they said I understand finance and I knew how to talk to the sales and marketing people, and we needed to get our hands around sales compensation. So that was my entry point, and from there that blossomed into more broad compensation plan design and so forth. I worked on a number of survey boards in my past. So I've been a compensation practitioner for the vast majority of my career, but my initial transition point was from accounting finance.
Okay, all right. So I realize that we have taken two minutes of Julie's time. So Julie, thank you for the opportunity. What a great panel you chose.
Thank you all. This was such an informative discussion, especially for somebody like me that doesn't come from the HR world, but is really concerned about my team and how to make sure that we're keeping them all happy. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to everybody that joined this conversation and for the work that you all do in the community every day. Just a quick reminder to look for the salary and benefits survey that's going to be in your inbox in July. And please mark your calendars to make sure you make time for your organization to respond. Everyone who responds will automatically get a complimentary preview copy of the report later this year before it is released to the public. And just on the topic of trauma and organizational self-care, look for our next nonprofit navigation series coming up on July 18th. You won't want to miss that. We have our friends from Cornerstones of Care coming in to share about how to have self-care both at the organizational level and at the individual level. And finally, we are launching a new series on allyship in nonprofits that's going to kick off in July. The first 3 sessions of that will be offered in a hybrid format, and the 4th will be in person only, and you are welcome to come to one or all of those sessions. You can find information about these and other programs coming that are coming up on our website at mcnl.org. And with that, I'll give you 2 minutes back in your day. Thank you, panelists. Again, you all were wonderful. We appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge. And thank you, everybody that participated. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.